They say you never truly know the people closest to you, not until something shatters the surface. For me, it was the day my daughter vanished for 6 hours. 6 hours of not knowing where she was, what had happened, if she was even alive. And when we found her, scared, crying, confused, my father, the man I'd leaned on my whole life, simply looked at me and said, "She needs discipline." That moment changed everything. But before I dive in, I'd love to know, what city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. It's always comforting to see how far stories like mine can reach, and who's listening out there. It all started on a Wednesday afternoon. I remember the weather so clearly because I had opened the windows to let the warm breeze roll through the house. It was one of those rare peaceful days, laundry folded, dinner already prepped, and Ava, my 8-year-old, playing outside in the yard with her chalk set. She was drawing stars and hearts along the concrete steps. She just started writing words too, her name, Mom, and a very misspelled unicorn that made me smile. I was inside, finishing a call with my boss. Nothing major, just scheduling shifts. I work part-time at a local clinic. It's not glamorous, but it keeps the lights on and puts food on the table. Eva's dad hasn't been in the picture for years. He left when she was still in diapers, and I've done my best since then to be both mom and dad. The call lasted maybe 20 minutes. When I hung up and glanced out the kitchen window, she wasn't there anymore. At first, I didn't panic. Kids wander. She might have gone to the side of the house, or maybe ran inside for a snack. But when I checked every room and called her name and heard nothing, no little feet, no voice, not even the creak of a door, I felt something turn cold inside me. I ran outside, barefoot, the gravel biting into my soles. I called out again, louder, "Ava, baby, where are you?" No answer. I knocked on the neighbors' doors. Nobody had seen her. No bikes, no cars, no sounds, just the breeze moving through the trees and my heart thudding so hard I thought I might collapse. The police were called. Time started melting. Minutes blurred into hours. Every second without her felt like another layer of me unraveling. I imagined every worst-case scenario, and my mind played them on a cruel loop. Around hour 4, my dad arrived. My father is a serious man, retired military, never much for soft words or emotional displays. I called him because I didn't know what else to do. He lived 20 minutes away and had always insisted that if anything ever happened, he'd come. He walked in like he still owned the room. Didn't hug me. Didn't ask how I was holding up. Just said, "Where's the officer in charge?" I don't know what I expected from him. Comfort, reassurance, anything, but he offered none of it. While I paced the living room, clutching Ava's favorite stuffed bunny, he stood in the doorway, arms folded, his expression flat. "She probably just ran off," he said, like she was a stray dog. "You coddle her too much." I didn't have the energy to argue. 6 hours and 17 minutes after she went missing, my phone rang. They'd found her. A woman across town had spotted Ava crying behind a dumpster outside a dollar store. She was alone, shaken, but safe. The ride to pick her up felt endless. When I finally saw her sitting on a bench, wrapped in a police officer's jacket, her cheeks streaked with dirt and tears, I dropped to my knees and held her like I was trying to mold her back into my skin. She kept saying, "I got lost, Mommy. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." I whispered, it's okay," over and over again until my voice cracked. We brought her home. I gave her a bath, held her until she fell asleep, and then finally went back into the living room, where my dad was waiting, arms still crossed. "She needs discipline," he said, like that was the answer to everything. I stared at him stunned. Discipline? She was terrified Dad. She thought she was in trouble. She got lost and didn't know how to get home. "She's old enough to know better," he replied coldly. "Maybe if you weren't always babying her, she'd have the sense to stay put." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not broke, not shattered, but cracked in a quiet, definitive way. A realization surfaced that I had been pushing down for years. This wasn't just about parenting styles. This was about a pattern. Suddenly, I remembered things from when I was a little girl. Times I had cried and been told to get over it. When I needed help, and he told me to figure it out myself. When he took my savings to fix his truck and never paid me back. When he told me college was a waste of money and refused to co-sign a loan that could have changed my life. I had spent years telling myself he was just old school. But sitting there, watching him show not an ounce of empathy for his own granddaughter, I realized it wasn't just old-fashioned toughness. It was something colder, something meaner, something I had made excuses for far too long. I didn't say anything to him that night. I just went back to Ava's room and watched her sleep, brushing her still damp hair from her forehead. But in my chest, a quiet storm had begun. And soon it would rise. The next morning felt like waking up after a storm. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Ava was still sleeping when I got up. I let her be. She looked so peaceful, like the whole nightmare hadn't even touched her in the way it had scarred me. But I knew better. She clung to me in her sleep, her tiny hand wrapped around my wrist, like she was afraid I'd disappear. Downstairs, my father sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee like it was any ordinary day. He didn't look up when I walked in. I made a decision right then and there. I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I couldn't keep swallowing my feelings just to maintain the illusion of a stable family. "You still think she needs discipline?" I asked quietly, pouring myself a cup of coffee I wouldn't even drink. He finally looked up. "Don't start, Claire. You asked me to come." "I came. I said what I thought." "No," I said, my voice trembling. "You didn't think Dad. You judged. You stood there while I was falling apart and made it about control. About obedience. Like she was a disobedient pet and not a terrified little girl." He didn't answer. He just stared at me like I'd said something foolish. And that silence, it said everything. I didn't press him. I couldn't, not yet, but something in me had shifted. That crack from the night before had spread, and now I saw the fracture lines in every memory I'd held sacred. It was a few days later that Ava said something that made my blood run cold. We were in the living room, watching a cartoon. She had her head in my lap, one of her crayons in hand, drawing on a scrap of paper. "Grandpa said it was my fault," she mumbled. I blinked. "What, sweetie?" She looked up at me. "When you were in the kitchen, after the police came. He leaned down and said I was a bad girl for making you cry." My stomach turned. "He said that." She nodded. "But I wasn't trying to be bad. I just wanted to see the bunnies across the street." I had to swallow hard to keep from crying in front of her. She was already trying to shoulder something she didn't even understand. I didn't want to add to her burden with my own heartbreak. Later that night, after she went to bed, I called my sister, my younger sister Lindsay. She lived 2 hours away and we hadn't been close in a long time, mostly because of Dad. He always said she was too sensitive, too rebellious, ungrateful. But she picked up on the second ring. "I need to ask you something," I said. "About Dad." There was a pause. "I've been waiting 10 years to hear you say that," she replied. That one sentence opened the floodgates. We talked for over an hour. Lindsay told me stories I had either forgotten or never knew. About how Dad had taken money from her college fund and used it to buy a riding mower he didn't need. About how, when she had a miscarriage, he told her it was probably for the best, because she wasn't mature enough for motherhood. About the time he slapped her boyfriend for hugging her goodbye. "I always thought you didn't believe me," she said. "You never stood up to him." I didn't know what to say. She was right. I hadn't stood up to him. Not when it mattered. I thought I was being the peacekeeper. I thought if I just held everything together long enough, things would settle. That we could have a normal family. But the cost of that illusion had been years of emotional bruises. Silent ones. Invisible ones. "Claire," she said finally, "you don't owe him your silence." Not anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house like a ghost. Every corner held a memory, some good, but many laced with quiet pain I hadn't acknowledged until now. Ava's backpack sat by the door, the same one she had dropped the day she disappeared. I hadn't noticed before, but the zipper was broken, like it had been yanked open. I checked inside, half expecting to find it empty, but something was there. A small plastic container with 2 cookies, and a crumpled $5 bill. I asked Ava about it the next day. She looked nervous at first, then whispered, "I took the money from your purse. I just wanted to buy bunny food. I thought I'd come right back." My heart cracked again. She had taken $5 and left to do something sweet, something innocent, and it had turned into the most terrifying day of our lives. I didn't yell. I didn't scold. I just knelt down and held her. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "you're not in trouble. I just needed to know the truth. Thank you for telling me." Her eyes welled with tears. "Are you mad?" "No. But next time promise me, no matter what you want to do, you'll come talk to me first. We'll do it together." "Okay." She nodded, and for the first time since that day, she smiled, small and uncertain, but real. Later, I called my dad. He answered with a gruff hello. "I need you to leave us alone for a while," I said. He didn't respond. "I know you think you're helping, but you're not. You've crossed too many lines, and I can't let you hurt Ava the way you hurt me and Lindsay." He muttered something I didn't catch. "This isn't punishment," I said. "It's protection." Then I hung up. I expected to feel guilty. I didn't. What I felt was peace. Quiet, tentative peace. The kind that comes when you finally choose yourself, when you choose your child. But that wasn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. Because what I uncovered next would take everything I thought I knew about my family and burn it to the ground. The next few weeks were quieter, but they weren't calm. Ava seemed to bounce back with the effortless resilience only children have. She was laughing more, drawing again, sleeping better. But every now and then, I'd see her hesitate before going into the yard, glancing over her shoulder like she expected someone to scold her. She hadn't asked about my father once. She didn't mention him. And that silence said more than words ever could. I focused on her, making our little home feel safe again, building routines, baking cookies together, going to the park. I wanted her to feel steady. Like the world wasn't as shaky as it had been that day. But in the background, something else was building, something I couldn't ignore. It started with a phone call from the bank. "Hi, Miss Sanders, this is Kelly from First Union. I just wanted to confirm that you authorized the $3,000 withdrawal last week." I froze. I didn't make any withdrawal," I said. A pause. "Well, it was processed using your information. In-person withdrawal at the main branch." The room felt suddenly cold. "I haven't been to the bank in a month," I told her. "Do you have a joint account with anyone else?" "No, it's just me." She promised to start a fraud investigation and assured me the funds were insured. But my thoughts immediately jumped to one person, my father. It wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. That kind of instinct that comes not from imagination, but from memory, the kind you trained yourself to ignore. Years ago, when I was just starting out as a young single mom, I'd saved up a little cushion. I was so proud of it. $800, tucked away for emergencies. One day, it was gone. Dad had borrowed it. I confronted him, and he told me I was being dramatic. "You're living under my roof," he had said. "Don't act like that money wasn't mine too." He never paid it back. I had buried that memory so deep it barely had a pulse, but now it was gasping for air. I called Lindsay again. "Do you still have that file?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "The one I started when he took Mom's last Social Security check after she passed?" "Yeah, I still have it." She emailed it that night, a scanned PDF with years' worth of notes, bank withdrawals, texts, handwritten letters. One line stood out in her notes. ***, Claire said Dad borrowed $800 in 2017. She looked ashamed to even bring it up. I don't think she ever told him no. It was like reading someone else's life, but it was mine. The next morning, I went to the bank in person. I needed to see the security footage of the withdrawal. The manager was kind but hesitant. "We can't share the footage without a subpoena," she said. "But I'll tell you this, it wasn't you." Her voice lowered. "It was a man. Gray hair. Military jacket. He had your account number and ID." My stomach dropped. He had stolen my license once, years ago, when I left my wallet at his house overnight. Said he was just checking something. I hadn't thought twice about it. He must have taken a picture of it. Saved it. "I'm calling the police," I said. But the words didn't feel real yet. I walked out of the bank in a daze, sat in my car, and just stared at the steering wheel. How do you press charges against your own father? How do you explain to your daughter that her grandpa, the one she used to call Gramps and draw silly pictures for, stole money meant to pay for her school clothes? It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. I felt like a fool for ever believing he could change. But I also felt something else. Anger. And that anger was finally louder than the shame. That night I sat Ava down. There's something I want to talk to you about, I said gently. She looked up at me with those big, curious eyes. Is it about Gramps? Yes. Her face changed. I could see her brace. He's not going to be around for a while, and that's not your fault, okay? It's a decision I made to keep us safe. She didn't say anything. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt people, and when they don't say sorry, or keep doing it, it's okay to walk away, even if they're family. Her voice was soft. I think he made me feel like I did something bad. I pulled her into my arms. You didn't, and you don't have to see him again if you don't want to. That night, after she went to sleep, I called Officer Nguyen, the same woman who had helped when Ava went missing. I told her everything. To my surprise, she didn't act shocked. She listened, carefully, respectfully. You'd be surprised how often this happens, she said. Family financial abuse is more common than people think, but you're doing the right thing by speaking up. She guided me through filing a report, told me what to expect, that it might take time, that it might not lead to charges, but it would create a record. A record. The one thing my father never left. Everything he did was just under the radar. Emotional manipulation, verbal control, guilt disguised as guidance. But now, for the first time, there would be a line drawn. A footprint. A boundary. I went through my statements, circled every questionable transaction. I kept records. I sent them in. I told the truth. It didn't undo the pain. It didn't put the money back in my account, not yet. But it gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Power. And I wasn't going to let it go. Still, I wasn't prepared for what came next. A letter. Mailed. Handwritten. No return address. It said, ***, you think you're so strong. You're just like your mother. Ungrateful. I gave you everything. I took care of you. And this is how you repay me? You want a war, Claire. You got it. ***. He had signed it with one word. ***Dad***. Suddenly, this wasn't just about missing money. This was about control, and I was done letting him have any. A week after the letter arrived, I changed every lock on the house. Not just the front door, the back, the garage, even the tiny latch on Ava's bedroom window. I bought a new security camera system, installed it myself late into the night, hands shaking but determined. I wasn't being paranoid, I was being a mother. I'd spent most of my life shrinking to avoid conflict with my father, avoiding questions, brushing off his behavior, rewriting my own memories just to keep the family picture looking whole. But the illusion had shattered, and now I was finally picking up the pieces for **me**, and for Ava. The letter had rattled me, yes, but it also clarified something that had been muddy my whole life. My father didn't see love the way I did. To him, love was control. Loyalty was silence. Family was ownership. To me, love was safety, loyalty was truth. And family, real family, was someone who protected you, not someone you feared. I reported the letter to Officer Nguyen, who added it to the record. She couldn't do much unless he escalated, but at least now there was a paper trail. Meanwhile, Eva started asking questions again, not about what had happened that day she went missing, but about Grandpa. Was he like that when you were little? She asked one evening as we painted together at the kitchen table. I paused mid-brushstroke. Yes, I said. But I didn't understand it then. Did anyone help you? That question cracked something inside me. No, baby, not really. That's why I'm trying to do better now. She looked at me seriously. You are doing better. A few days later, I got a call from the bank. They had finished their investigation. Yes, the manager said. We can confirm the funds were fraudulently withdrawn. Given the circumstances, we've already refunded the full amount to your account. And, Ms. Sanders, we reviewed our system logs. The same individual tried to access your account again 2 days ago. My throat went dry. What happened? He failed the security questions and left. The timeline lined up, right around when the letter arrived. He was trying to scare me and robbed me again. But now I wasn't scared. I was done. I sent my father one message. Short. Clear. Final. Do not contact me or my daughter again. You know what you did. If you attempt anything further, I will pursue full legal action. We are not afraid of you anymore. I didn't get a reply. But part of me didn't need one. The silence was confirmation enough. For the first time in my life, I had drawn the line, and he hadn't dared to cross it. About a month later, Lindsay came to visit. We hadn't been this close since we were teenagers. She brought her 2 boys, and they played with Eva in the backyard. There was laughter again, joy, something that felt like freedom. After dinner, as we sat on the porch watching the kids chase lightning bugs, she turned to me. You know he won't stop, right? He'll twist it in his head, make himself the victim. I nodded. I know, but I'm not trying to convince him anymore. I'm done managing his feelings while ignoring my own. She smiled. You really are stronger than he ever gave you credit for. It took me a while to believe that, but sitting there with my daughter safe, with my sister by my side, and with peace finally returning to my life, I started to. Not long after, Eva brought home a drawing from school. She had titled it My Safe House. It was our home, with little heart-shaped windows and a tree out front. We were both in it, smiling, no third figure, just us. She said she didn't want to draw Grandpa. Her teacher had whispered kindly. She said he doesn't live in the safe part of my life anymore. I didn't cry in front of her. I waited until later, when she was asleep and the house was quiet. Because that was it, really. The ending. Not dramatic, not loud, but final. He had taken enough. And we had taken back everything. Our money, our safety, our voice. And most of all, our power. So to anyone out there wondering if you're overreacting, if you're just being too sensitive, if speaking up will only cause problems in the family, let me tell you. There's nothing wrong with protecting yourself. There's nothing weak about walking away from someone who uses love like a weapon. And there's nothing stronger than breaking the cycle, for yourself and for the little eyes watching you, waiting to see what love really looks like. Because Ava, she won't grow up fearing the people who are supposed to protect her. She'll grow up knowing that boundaries are love, that standing up for yourself is love, and that her mother was brave enough to show her the difference.